I stared at the glittering skyline through my windshield, wondering how I got roped into another one of Sophie's messes. Inside the Grand Hotel's ballroom, laughter spilled out into the street. Champagne flowed like rivers. A magician dazzled a crowd of squealing kids, and an ice sculpture in the shape of a roaring lion stood as a monument to my bank account's slow death. I adjusted my navy blazer, breathing deep. Tonight was Leo's birthday, my nephew, Sophie's son, and like always, the extravagant party had somehow been my responsibility. Not because I offered, not because I owed them, just because that's how it always was. As I crossed the marble lobby, I spotted Sophie near the bar, a drink already in hand, laughing too loud at something Evan said. She saw me and raised her glass mockingly. "Finally! Thought you might actually flake," she called out. Without waiting for my answer, she added with a smirk, "Don't worry, Rach. Just charge it to your card, like always." The words hit harder than I expected. Casual, entitled, expected. I smiled tightly. The kind of smile you wear when you're 2 seconds from losing your mind, but there are too many witnesses. "Happy birthday, Leo," I said, kneeling down to hand him a wrapped gift, a beautiful set of classic adventure books I had spent hours picking out. Leo beamed. Sophie didn't even glance at them before muttering under her breath, "Books? Ugh, boring." I swallowed my irritation. Not here, not now. This wasn't the first time Sophie made me feel small. But tonight, standing under crystal chandeliers, paid for with my sacrifices, something cracked inside me. And for the first time, I wasn't sure I could, or even wanted to, patch it up. Growing up, Sophie was the sun, and I was the dull little moon orbiting around her chaos. Our parents, Susan and Mark, adored her in a way that made it crystal clear. She could do no wrong. If Sophie skipped class, she's just creative, not built for structure. If I earned straight A's, well, of course, Rachel. You always were the serious one. Sophie didn't have to try. She charmed teachers, strangers and boyfriends with that same effortless grin she used tonight at Leo's party, the one that always seemed to say, "I'm special and you should pay for it." Meanwhile, I was the backup plan. When she dropped out of college, I helped her move. When she quit her 5th job in 2 years, I paid a few months of rent just until she got back on her feet. When she married Evan and the bills started piling up, guess who co-signed the loan for the sleek black BMW she absolutely needed to show her boss she was serious this time? Spoiler alert, she quit that job 6 weeks later. Every time I told myself it was for Leo, he deserved stability, even if his mother treated responsibility like a game she was losing on purpose. But if I was honest, deep down, I think I wanted to believe that helping Sophie would finally earn me a place at the table. A real seat, not the one you get handed because no one else bothered to show up. I scrolled through my phone, skimming past payment confirmations, credit card transfers, emails about overdue tuition payments I'd quietly covered without asking for thanks. Tens of thousands of dollars, years of second chances. And standing here tonight, a ghost at my nephew's birthday party, listening to Sophie mock me for bringing a gift that wasn't cash stuffed in an envelope. Maybe it was time to admit the truth. I was never family to Sophie. I was just her wallet with a heart. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to cancel the subscription. I didn't storm out. There was no dramatic shouting match, no tossed champagne glasses, no gasps from the glamorous crowd gathered under the chandeliers. Instead, I smiled. A real smile this time, not the tight, strained one I'd worn for years. I walked calmly across the marble floor, past Sophie laughing too loud, past Evan pretending not to notice the tension, past a cluster of Sophie's friends, who barely knew my name but would happily drink on my tab. I stepped into the cool night air and pulled out my phone. I froze the credit card Sophie had been using before I even reached the curb. Then, for the first time in years, I blocked her number. Not muted. Not I'll deal with it later. Blocked. Gone. I slid into my car, the silence inside wrapping around me like a weighted blanket after years of sleepless nights. As I drove home through the city's neon-lit streets, my mind buzzed, but not with panic like I would have expected, with clarity. I wasn't abandoning Leo. I was just refusing to bankroll Sophie's fantasies anymore. When I reached my apartment, I moved with mechanical precision. I logged into my online banking, cancelled every linked account Sophie had ever touched. I emailed the school Leo attended, informing them that moving forward, any financial arrangements would need to be discussed directly with Evan. No more middleman, no more pretending. I thought I might cry. I thought maybe the guilt would gut me the way it always had, but as I closed my laptop with a soft, decisive click, all I felt was relief. For the first time, the weight pressing against my ribs wasn't there. For the first time, the guilt didn't win. The messages started immediately. First, a flurry of texts. Sophie, hey wretch, think the card's acting up, lol, try again. Sophie, Rachel, seriously? Leo's party isn't over. Fix this. Sophie, are you serious right now? I ignored them all. Then came the calls, blocked too easily with a swipe of my thumb. By midnight, my phone was vibrating so much it slid halfway off my nightstand. When I finally glanced at the screen, I wasn't surprised to see Mum's name flashing. I let it go to voicemail. I knew exactly what would be waiting for me. The pleading, the guilt trips, the carefully sharpened words that would slice right through me if I let them. Instead, I climbed into bed, pulled the covers tight around my shoulders, and slept harder than I had in years. The next morning, the fallout began. My phone was a graveyard of missed calls, voicemails dripping with anger, confusion, and desperation. First from Sophie, you ruined Leo's party. Everyone's talking about it. You embarrassed me. Then from Mom, I can't believe you would humiliate your sister like this. Leo deserves better. And finally, a short, clipped text from Dad as if he couldn't quite be bothered to call Dad handle this. 3 words. 3 words to sum up a lifetime of being treated like a disposable tool. I set the phone down without answering. I brewed coffee, I opened a window, I breathed. That afternoon, Susan showed up at my door. No call ahead, no text. Just the sharp knock I had learned long ago meant open up, I'm here to fix you. I stared at the door for a long moment before finally opening it. She stood there, her mouth already tight with disapproval. You need to make this right, she said, brushing past me into the living room like she owned the place. I didn't offer her a seat. Rachel, for God's sake, she said, pacing. Sophie is devastated. You froze the card in the middle of Leo's birthday party. People noticed. And? I asked, voice flat. Susan blinked, thrown off by my lack of apology. Usually by now, I would have been crying, offering to pay double, begging forgiveness. You embarrassed her, she said, as if that was the worst crime imaginable. No, I said. Sophie embarrassed herself. All I did was stop funding it. Susan's eyes narrowed. You've always been cold, Rachel. You don't understand family loyalty. I laughed. I couldn't help it. Family loyalty? I echoed. Is that what we're calling financial exploitation now? She's your sister, and I'm your daughter, I snapped, the words tearing out of me like a storm. Or did you forget that somewhere between bailing her out and ignoring me, Susan's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. You don't understand. She's struggling, so am I. I interrupted, my voice steady, razor sharp, struggling to be seen. Struggling to matter. Struggling to not feel like I'm only valuable if I'm paying for everyone else's mistakes. There it was, the thing I had never dared say out loud before. Susan recoiled, as if the truth physically hurt her. You're punishing Leo, she said weakly, trying one last time to twist the knife. I shook my head. No. I made sure the school knows Evan can contact me directly if Leo needs something. But Sophie? She's on her own. The words fell heavy between us. Undeniable. For the first time, I saw my mother not as some impossible figure towering over me, but as just a woman, flawed, fallible, and terribly, terribly wrong. I think you should leave now, I said, opening the door again. Susan hesitated, like she might say something else, something that could undo years of hurt. But then she straightened, set her jaw, and marched past me without a word. Good. Let her carry her silence. I closed the door behind her, locking it with a soft, satisfying click. And just like that, the cycle was broken. Not with a scream, not with a fight, with a choice. A choice to choose myself, finally, fully, without apology. The storm didn't hit all at once. It came in waves, texts, voicemails, whispered guilt trips disguised as concern. Sophie's messages at first were pure rage. Sophie, you're dead to me, Rachel. Dead. Sophie, how could you do this to Leo? Sophie, you don't even care about family. Each one more frantic than the last, each one riddled with typos and the kind of entitlement that had once made me bend over backward to fix everything. I didn't reply. Not even when Evan texted a quiet, almost embarrassed message. Evan, can we talk? That one almost got me. Almost. But I knew better now. No more half measures, no more backdoors. No more playing saviour. The first real crack appeared 3 days later. A call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something nudged me to pick up. Rachel? It's Evan. His voice was low, cautious. I didn't say anything, just waited. I didn't know, he said finally. I thought Sophie had a trust fund or something. I didn't realise it was all you. I stayed silent. She told me you were helping out here and there, not funding everything. There was a bitter laugh, raw around the edges. She even told her friends she paid for the party. Of course she did. I let out a breath. I'm not punishing Leo, I said, voice even. If you need help for him, you can call me. But not for her. There was a pause so long I thought he might have hung up. Then, almost brokenly, he said, she lied to everyone, even me. I could hear the weight in his voice, the slow realization of just how deep Sophie's web of manipulation ran. It wasn't my job to fix that either. I hope you figure it out, I said, and hung up before he could say anything else. That was the beginning of the real unravelling. Within a week, Evan had packed up and moved out, taking Leo with him. They went to stay with Evan's parents, good people, stable people, and, from what I heard later through the family grapevine, Leo was doing better than he had in months. Sophie, on the other hand, was spiralling. First, she lost the apartment, the sleek, overpriced condo she couldn't afford without my invisible bankrolling. Gone. Next, the BMW was repossessed. Apparently, Sophie had never made a single payment on it, just racked up tickets and fees while posting Instagram selfies about #bosslife. The calls from my parents got more intense. Mum's voice, usually so carefully sweet, was now sharp with desperation. "You're ruining your sister's life," she hissed into my voicemail one afternoon. Dad's messages were colder, angrier. She's living in our basement now. She has nothing, Rachel. Are you happy? They didn't see it, couldn't see it. Sophie wasn't falling because I had pushed her. She was falling because she had built her life out of lies and borrowed money and assumed she'd never have to pay for any of it. I didn't answer their calls. Not anymore. Instead, I poured that time into rebuilding myself. I took on new projects at work. I started running again, rediscovering the strange freedom of moving forward without dragging someone else's weight behind me. I made Saturday mornings sacred: coffee, books, music played too loud, no guilt, no obligations. It was strange at first, like walking on a broken ankle that had finally started to heal. But it was good. It was real. Of course, Sophie didn't stay gone. She was too stubborn, too entitled to simply fade away. 2 weeks after Evan left her, she showed up at my office. I saw her through the glass doors, hair unbrushed, expensive clothes rumpled, desperation radiating from her like heat waves. My co-workers stared. I sighed and stepped outside before she could cause a scene. She didn't even try to pretend. "You have to help me," she said, voice cracking. "I don't have to do anything," I said, arms crossed. She blinked, genuinely stunned, as if the idea that someone might refuse her had never once crossed her mind. "I'm living in Mum and Dad's basement. Leo's gone. I don't even have a car anymore," she wailed, voice pitching higher. I kept my face blank. I didn't trust myself to speak yet. "Just help me get back on my feet," she pleaded. "Just a little. I swear I'll pay you back this time." I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I asked quietly, "How many times have you said that, Sophie?" She flushed deep red but ploughed ahead. "This time's different." "It always is," I said, voice low. There was a long, brittle silence. For a moment she dropped the act, the anger, the pleading, the indignation, and looked. Small, and scared and very, very lost. I felt a flicker of something. Pity, maybe. Grief for the sister I had wished for but never really had. But pity isn't love. And pity wasn't enough to make me step back into the trap I had finally crawled free from. "No," I said, voice firm. "If you want a better life, build it yourself." Her mouth twisted. "You think you're better than me now," she spat. "No," I said. "I just finally understand the difference between helping someone and enabling them." She glared at me for a long moment, then turned and stormed off, her heels clacking furiously against the tile. I watched her go, and then I went back inside, poured myself a cup of bad office coffee, and got back to work. Later that night, my phone buzzed with another message from my parents. "Susan, family means never giving up on each other." I stared at it for a long time before typing a single response. Me, family also means respect. Maybe when Sophie figures that out, we can talk. And for the first time in a long, long time, I meant every word. Weeks turned into months. The calls from my parents slowed first, from daily to weekly, to only on holidays filled with awkward silences and clipped pleasantries. They still thought I was cruel, that by stepping away from Sophie I had broken some sacred code written in blood and sacrifice. Maybe I had. But for the first time, I was free. I filled my weekends with things that once felt like luxuries, long mornings spent wandering through bookstores, road trips to nowhere, windows down, music blaring, brunches with friends who laughed without keeping score. I didn't have to check my bank account every morning in fear of a mysterious $800 emergency charge from Sophie. I didn't dread holidays, waiting for the inevitable moment when she'd humiliate me in front of a room full of strangers. I wasn't someone's emotional ATM anymore. I was just Rachel. And it was enough. Leo's birthday came around again, and this time there was no grand, glittering ballroom, no ice sculptures, No desperate race to cover ballooning bills. Evan threw him a small party at a local park, homemade cupcakes, rented bouncy castle, picnic blankets under a huge oak tree. He invited me, carefully, like someone reaching out to a wounded animal that might bolt. I went. Leo sprinted across the grass the moment he saw me, tackling my legs in a hug so fierce it nearly knocked me over. "Thank you for the books, Aunt Rachel," he said, breathless. "I finished all of them. I'm reading The Hobbit now." I laughed, real and full, lifting him up and spinning him once. "I'm so proud of you, buddy," I said. Sophie wasn't there. From what I heard, she was still bouncing between temp jobs and late-night bars, still spinning stories about how I'd abandoned her, still clinging to the version of reality where she was the victim and everyone else owed her another shot. But that wasn't my story anymore. And it sure as hell wasn't Leo's. Evan and I sat on the grass, watching Leo and his friends build a fortress out of sticks and imagination. "Thank you," Evan said quietly, handing me a bottle of water. "For what?" I asked, genuinely confused. "For not letting her keep dragging you down," he said simply. "For being the one adult Leo can count on." I didn't know what to say to that. So I just smiled, and together we watched a new future unfold. Simple, imperfect, but honest. Weeks later, on a rainy Thursday afternoon, I got a text from an unknown number. "Sophie, I get it now." 3 words. No explanation. No apologies. Just that. I sat staring at the screen, the rain tapping steady against my office window. And for a wild, fleeting moment, I almost answered. Almost slid back into the role I had worn like second skin for so long, fixer, forgiver, forgotten. But I didn't. Some lessons aren't about getting closure. Some wounds aren't about healing someone else's story. Sometimes freedom costs silence. Sometimes love means letting people fall without rushing to catch them. I powered off my phone and slid it into my desk drawer. I walked out into the rain without an umbrella, letting it soak through my jacket, my hair, my skin. And for the first time in a long, long time, I wasn't running from anything. I was simply moving forward. The world smelled clean, like fresh beginnings. Maybe Sophie would change. Maybe she wouldn't. Maybe my parents would understand someday. Maybe they wouldn't. It didn't matter. I was done measuring my worth against the people too blind to see it. I was done begging for a seat at a table where the rules were written to keep me small. I had built my own table now, sturdy, unbreakable, mine. And as I stood there, dripping and laughing in the rain like some cliché movie heroine, I realized something simple and true. Freedom isn't free. It costs boundaries and heartbreak and standing alone in rooms where you once begged to belong. It costs walking away without making sure they understand why. It costs letting go of the fantasy that one day they'll change. But freedom, it's worth every damn cent. Story 2. Last Saturday, I hit a milestone I never thought I'd dread. My 50-twond birthday. 52 years of trying to do the right thing, working myself to the bone, showing up even when it hurt. I figured maybe, just maybe, my kids would see that too. Spoiler, they didn't. My name's Charles Monroe. Divorced, 2 dogs, and technically 3 sons at least on paper. Noah 30, Evan 27, and Carter 24. Their mum, Rachel, and I split up 9 years ago after a 21-year marriage that disintegrated the second I stopped being fun enough for her new lifestyle. It wasn't a messy divorce, legally speaking. But emotionally, it was a slow bleed I never really patched up. I became the background parent, the one who said no to impulsive vacations, who signed loan forms instead of taking them shopping for sneakers that cost more than my car insurance. They stayed with Rachel. She had the bigger smiles, the looser rules, and, eventually, the CrossFit instructor boyfriend. Still, I kept the lines open birthday texts, awkward Christmas lunches, random thinking of you calls. It was all surface level. But when Noah rang me 3 weeks ago, saying they wanted to throw me a party for my 50th, I made the mistake of hoping. Stupid, right? The party was at this new microbrewery Evans Buddy owns. Craft beer, mismatched wood furniture, overpriced appetizers. Around 30 people showed up, neighbours I hadn't seen in years. Some of my cousins, a handful of old work buddies. And of course, my sons and Rachel. Rachel being there should have been my first red flag. But hope is a hell of a drug. The night started fine. Laughs, hugs, a decent pulled pork sandwich. For a brief, fragile hour, it felt like maybe, just maybe, we'd stitched some old wounds together. And then Noah tapped his glass with a fork. "We have a special presentation for Dad," he announced, beaming. "I thought it would be some cheesy photo montage, maybe a few embarrassing childhood shots, a joke about my bald spot, something normal. Instead, the lights dimmed, a screen came down, and the title splashed across the projector, The Chronicles of Charlie Monroe, A Lifetime of Letdowns. I kid you not. Narrated, get this, by Rachel herself, in that syrupy, condescending voice she used to save for PTA meetings. Failed husband, failed father, failed man. It wasn't just words. It was photos. Moments I'd tried to forget. There I was next to the used SUV that crapped out after 6 months. There I was with the paint chipped back deck that I never got to finish because I was clocking 60-hour weeks. A rejection letter from the promotion I missed out on framed, for effect. Then it got personal. Rachel didn't hold back. She spilled intimate details about our marriage specifically, about how I'd failed to meet her needs, and not just emotionally. I don't need to spell it out. You get the drift. People laughed. They actually laughed. At my birthday party. I sat there, stone still, as my heart collapsed in on itself. A few guests awkwardly looked away. Most kept chuckling, drunk enough or cruel enough not to care. The grand finale. Noah, Evan, and Carter stood together and announced they were legally changing their last names to Rachel's maiden name, Mason. "No more Monroe," Noah said with a grin. "We want to be free of that legacy." That word legacy, it hit harder than any of Rachel's cheap shots. Everyone clapped. I didn't. I just stood up, thanked everyone for coming, and walked out into the cold night air without looking back. I got home, poured a whiskey, sat on the edge of my bed staring at the wall until the sun came up. By Monday morning, my phone was vibrating like it was possessed. Missed calls, voicemails, texts, Facebook DMs, even an email from Carter, who hadn't written me a full sentence since high school. All of them basically saying the same thing in different flavors. "We need you to sign some paperwork." Turns out, for them to legally drop my last name, they needed my signature to speed things up. The irony was rich. Humiliate me, mock me in public, then come running for help the minute it got real. At first, I didn't answer. I didn't block them either. I just let the phone ring. It gave me time to think. The first few days after the party, I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad either. I was empty. Like someone had reached into my chest and scooped everything out, left the shell to sit there pretending to be alive. I took a couple days off work, didn't tell anyone why, just needed space. It's funny the things you notice when your world crumbles. The coffee maker dripping too loud, the neighbours arguing over something stupid like garbage bins. The way the house smelled a little like dust and old books when the heat kicked on. I made a lot of lists those days. Not revenge plans, not yet. Just facts. Fact, I paid for Noah's first down payment when Rachel couldn't. Fact, I've been quietly covering half of Evan's rent for the past 2 years because he needed time to find a better job. Fact, Carter's tuition bills somehow kept landing in my inbox even after he turned 22. Fact, they still called me a failure. Maybe I was. Maybe I failed at setting boundaries. Maybe I failed at teaching them what love actually looks like. I thought about that a lot, and the more I thought, the colder I got. Around Wednesday, I decided to finally answer Noah's call, kept my voice soft, careful, like a man who still believed he could fix something already smashed to bits. "Hey, Dad," he said, voice dripping with fake concern. "We were worried about you." Look, about the party, it was just jokes. No hard feelings, right? I let him ramble. Let him talk about how it was all in good fun, how I should take it in stride, how the paperwork wasn't a big deal. He thought he had me right where he wanted. I played along, told him I understood, told him I was sorry they felt like they needed to distance themselves, told him I still loved them. I even choked up a little, just for show. He bought it. We agreed to meet for dinner on Friday night. Just us. No Rachel, no friends. Neutral ground. He suggested this fancy steakhouse downtown, the kind of place where a burger costs more than my monthly internet bill. Classic Noah. Always needed the stage. I said sure. Hung up. Then sat there staring at the phone in my hand, feeling the old anger curl up from my gut like smoke. Not rage. Not the kind that makes you punch walls or scream into pillows. No, this was the quiet kind. The kind that doesn't just want payback, it wants understanding. It wants the truth laid bare, with no way for them to wriggle out of it. Friday night came. I dressed down on purpose. Old jeans, boots still muddy from fixing the fence, a flannel shirt 2 sizes too big. Let them see me how they think of me. Pathetic, small, forgettable. Noah showed up first. Hair gelled and shirt ironed so crisp you could hear it when he moved. Evan followed 5 minutes later, phone glued to his hand. Carter straggled in last, looking uncomfortable, like he already regretted being there. I ordered a beer, they ordered cocktails. Expensive ones, naturally. We made small talk. They pretended they cared about my work, my health. Evan even asked if I was still messing around with that old truck, like he hadn't rolled his eyes at it a dozen times before. Finally, Noah slid the papers across the table. No hesitation. "We appreciate you understanding, Dad," he said, all smooth politician voice. "This is really what's best for everyone." I nodded. Picked up the pen they'd so helpfully provided. Signed it. Initialed every box. Smiled as I slid it back to him. You would have thought Christmas came early from the look on his face. What they didn't know was that I'd already been preparing something of my own. When I got home, I logged onto my bank account. First, I cancelled every automatic transfer I'd been quietly making for years. Noah's mortgage help, Evan's rent subsidy, Carter's tuition top-ups. Gone. Then I pulled out my old laptop, dug into the emails, the Venmo records, the texts. Proof. Proof of the thousands I loaned, the bills I paid, the debts I covered. None of it court-ordered, all of it voluntary. Because that's what you do when you love someone, even when they spit on it. I packaged it all neatly. Screenshots, emails, receipts, printed it out, organized it into tidy little folders, one for each of them. I even made labels. Because if they wanted to erase my name from their lives, fine, but they weren't getting a damn thing else from me either. The next day, I sent them a message. Short, polite, Come by the house. Sunday. Noon. I've got something for each of you. Noah texted back in seconds. We'll be there. Evan just sent a thumbs up. Carter didn't say anything, but I figured he'd follow his brothers. Sunday rolled around. I woke up early. Made coffee. Cleaned the kitchen even though I didn't have to. Just habit, I guess. My mind was still calm, sharper than it had been in years. When noon hit, they rolled up together. Evan's new BMW idling in the driveway. Stereo thumping loud enough to shake the windows. Show-offs, as always. I opened the door, stepped aside. Let them walk in without a word. They were expecting gratitude. Maybe tears. Maybe some last desperate grab for connection. Instead, I handed them each a manila folder. Simple. Heavy. Noah looked suspicious right away. Evan ripped his open without thinking. Carter hesitated. Inside, all the receipts, all the payments, all the debts I'd forgiven without ever asking for anything back. Every single act of love they'd mistaken for obligation. Noah's face tightened first. That fake charm melting off him like cheap plastic left out in the sun. Evan just stared, flipping through page after page, his jaw working like he wanted to say something but couldn't figure out how to start. Carter. He didn't even open his, he just held it, staring at the floor. I gave them a minute, let it sink in. Then I spoke. You don't owe me a damn thing, I said. And after today, I don't owe you a damn thing either. Simple, straight, no yelling. No lectures, just the truth. Noah tried first. This is low, Dad, he said, trying to keep that slick tone. But there was panic underneath now. Why are you doing this? I smiled. A real smile. The first real one I think I'd worn around them in years. Doing what? Showing you what love looks like when it's gone. Evan slammed his folder shut, shoved it back across the table like it was poisoned. We needed help, he snapped. You're supposed to support your family, I just shrugged. You made it clear at the party that I'm not family. Just some mistake you had to correct. So consider it corrected. Carter still hadn't looked up. His hands were shaking. I hated that it hurt to see, but it didn't stop me. I leaned back in my chair, crossed my arms. And before you even think about coming after me for more, you should know I made a few other changes, I added. Sold the house last week. It's gone. Money's not coming to you. 3 sets of eyes widened at once. And yeah, I felt a flicker of satisfaction. Maybe that's petty, maybe that's human. I changed my last name too, I said, pulling out a slip of paper from my pocket. My legal name change confirmation. Figured since you didn't want the Monroe name, I shouldn't either. I didn't even say it mean, just a fact. Rachel's old last name Mason could rot with them. I took my mother's maiden name, Hale, simple, strong, something that hadn't been dragged through the mud. They didn't stay long after that. Noah stormed out first, muttering something under his breath I didn't bother catching. Evan tried to act tough, but he looked pale. He would. Carter paused at the door. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. In the end, he just said, real soft, I'm sorry, and left. I didn't follow, didn't call after him. I stood there in the doorway, the winter air creeping in around my bare feet, and just watched them drive away. Watched all 30 years of trying to be a good father roll down the street and disappear. That was 2 months ago. Since then, the phone's been quieter. Quieter than it's been in years. Sometimes Carter sends a text. Nothing heavy, just little things. Hope you're doing good. Saw a cool truck the other day, made me think of you. I answer when I feel like it. The other 2? Nothing. I hear things, though, through old friends, mutual acquaintances. Noah's struggling with his mortgage. Apparently, Rachel and her new husband aren't too keen on footing that bill. Evan's bouncing from job to job. Turns out when the free ride ends, keeping up the Instagram lifestyle gets a little harder. As for me, I'm good. I traded the house for a little cabin out by the lake. Nothing fancy, just peace. I'm seeing someone too. Her name's Julia. Kind eyes. Laughs with her whole body. Loves fishing and hates CrossFit. Good enough for me. For my 53rd birthday, I'm planning a trip. Montana, maybe. Somewhere the stars still look close enough to touch. No party, no speeches, no knives hidden in birthday cakes. Just me. And whatever's waiting out there. Funny thing is, losing them didn't break me. Trying to hold on to them almost did. Story 3. When my cousin barged into my apartment, I barely had time to process what was happening. He pointed straight at my girlfriend, Nia, and said loud enough for the neighbours to hear, "You should dump Liam tonight. You deserve a real man." Nia didn't hesitate. She started gathering my things, my laptop, my shoes, my favourite hoodie, and tossing them out the door like they were garbage. I just stood there, stunned, feeling like the floor had given out beneath me. I didn't yell. I didn't even ask why. Somehow, deep down, I already knew. Now here I am, 3:47 am, holed up in a grimy motel room where the walls are so thin I can hear the guy next door snoring through his dreams. Half my stuff is crammed into ripped trash bags, and my phone is lighting up with 21 missed calls from Nia, plus frantic, desperate texts like, "Please answer. Please, let me back up a bit. I'm Liam, 27. My cousin Zach, 31, has always been the family's golden boy. Tall, chiseled jawline, smooth-talking salesman with a company car, and that fake humility that makes people either admire him or secretly plot his downfall. Guess which camp I'm in? Nia, 25, and I had been together for about 18 months. We met at a friend's ugly sweater party on New Year's Eve. She had that kind of beauty that made you check yourself twice in the mirror, and that kind of ambition that made you feel a little insecure if you stayed too long in your comfort zone. She was always on. Perfect selfies, perfect captions, the whole curated dream. Looking back, I should have paid more attention to the way she laughed a little too long at Zach's stupid jokes, or how she always flipped her phone face down whenever a text popped up. I told myself it was nothing. I wanted it to be nothing. Last Thursday felt normal at first. I clocked out early from my shift at the warehouse after a machine jammed and texted Nia, letting her know I'd be home by 4 instead of 7. No reply, but that was normal too. She always said her notifications were glitchy. I pulled into the lot at 3:52 p.m, walked inside, heard voices from the bedroom. At first, I figured she was on a call, until I heard Zach's voice, that same stupid, smug laugh he had when we were kids, and he'd steal my Halloween candy. I froze in the hallway, every cell in my body on high alert, listening. "Liam's a good guy, sure," Zach said, casual as anything, "but good guys don't get you anywhere. He's stuck. He's comfortable being nobody. He'll never be more." Nia murmured something in agreement, too soft to catch. Then a louder line hit me like a slap. "You need a man who can take care of you. Someone who knows what he's doing. In life. In bed." I should have kicked the door in. Instead, I just pushed it open. It wasn't even locked. There they were. Zach lounging across my bed like he owned it. Nia sitting close, laughing at something he said, twirling a piece of her hair. Neither looked guilty. They looked annoyed. Like I was the inconvenience. What the hell? My voice cracked, higher than I meant. Zach smirked, stretching lazily. "Thought you were working late, buddy. Equipment failure, I said, trying to stay calm. Why are you in my bedroom? Nia sighed, all exaggerated patience. We were just talking, Liam. Relax. About how I'm a spineless loser? I snapped. Zach stood, towering over me like he always had. He clapped a hand on my shoulder. Someone needed to be honest with her, man. You're just stuck. No ambition, no drive. She deserves better. Better like you? I asked, voice low. You're engaged, Zach. He laughed. Actually laughed. Melanie gets it. We have an understanding. Nia stood too, arms folded. Liam, this isn't working. Hasn't been for a long time. I looked at her, trying to find the girl who used to trace circles on my hand when we watched movies. She wasn't there anymore. Only the cold stranger wearing her face. So you talked about it, I said quietly. But not with me, with him, she shrugged. Because he listens. Because he gets what I need. I wanted to scream, to punch Zach in the face until his smug grin disappeared. But something colder took over instead. Clearer. How long? I asked. Nia rolled her eyes. Nothing's happened. Yet. But he's right. You'll never change. You'll work that dead-end job forever and call it a life. Zach checked his watch, the Rolex my uncle gave him when he hit a sales milestone. Look, he said, trying reasonable pack your essentials. Give her some space. This is best for everyone. I started shoving clothes into a bag, ignoring the whispering and snickering behind me. When I grabbed my laptop, Nia tossed a few trash bags at my feet. Use these, she said sweetly. Want everything gone by tomorrow. I didn't argue, didn't fight, just filled the bags. On my way out, Zach called after me. No hard feelings, right, bud? You'll find someone more your speed. I didn't even look back. I drove around for hours before crashing on my buddy Cole's couch. By morning, I had a motel room, a headache, and a mountain of texts from Nia I couldn't bring myself to open. That's when I found it. Buried in one of the trash bags, my old iPad, still logged into my iCloud. And guess who never bothered setting up their own cloud storage? Yeah, Nia, every text, every backup, every photo, all there. And what I found, let's just say nothing happened yet, was the biggest lie of all. I sat there in that miserable motel room, the glow from the iPad lighting up the cracked ceiling. At first, I didn't even know what I was looking for. I told myself maybe, just maybe, I was wrong. Maybe Zach was right. Maybe they hadn't crossed the line. I wish that's what I found. The messages started innocent enough. Zach asking about me, Nia venting about little things. But as the months went by, it shifted. Compliments, inside jokes, flirting, and then full-on planning. When I was at work, they met up. When I was visiting my folks, they went apartment hunting for her, but guess who tagged along to help? But the part that really gutted me wasn't even about her. It was about me. You should have seen Liam's face when I got promoted, Zach texted her. Same look he had when I beat him at everything as a kid. Some people are just built to lose, he added. Well, that's mean, Nia replied. But she threw a laughing emoji on it. Like my whole existence was some bad sitcom they joked about after sex. I don't know how long I sat there just scrolling. Couldn't even cry, couldn't even feel, just hollow. Eventually, something sharper slid in, not rage, not even revenge. Clarity. If they thought I was weak because I didn't fight dirty, because I didn't cheat, didn't lie, didn't punch people who hurt me, fine. Let them think that, because now it was my turn. And I wasn't going to swing blindly like they expected. I was going to aim. First thing the next morning, I called in sick. Told my manager I had the flu, threw in a fake cough for good measure. I needed time to think, to plan. 2 days holed up in that dumpy motel. 2 days fueled by dollar menu burgers and bitter coffee. 2 days combing through every text, every saved photo, every scrap of leverage. I built folders, organized screenshots, labeled everything. A folder for Zach, a folder for Nia, even one for Uncle Marcus, Zach's boss at the family company. You see, the timing was perfect. Zach wasn't just engaged to Melanie, who, by the way, came from one of those families where reputation was everything. He was also up for a massive promotion. VP of sales, 6 figures, company car, corner office, the works. The same job he'd been bragging about to everyone at Thanksgiving while I was trying not to choke on dry turkey. If he got it, he'd be untouchable. If he didn't, different story. So I mapped it out, like surgery. Step 1, Melanie. Step 2, Uncle Marcus. Step 3, the world Zach built, brick by lying brick, crumbling down around him. I started with Melanie. Sent her a casual text about planning Zach's bachelor party. Said I needed some insider tips to make it special. She bit immediately. Melanie loved being in control. We met for coffee at this bougie little spot downtown where the lattes come with hearts in the foam and the servers call you hun. I got there early, sat facing the door. When Melanie walked in, she looked every inch the polished, perfect fiancée, nails done, hair flawless, big rocks sparkling on her finger. She smiled when she saw me, thought she was walking into some fun surprise planning session, and for 5 minutes I let her think that. Then I slid my phone across the table, screen up, folder open. First a few screenshots, then more, then all of them. Melanie didn't say anything at first, didn't gasp, didn't cry. She just scrolled, slow, mechanical, like her brain was trying to translate a language she didn't want to understand. By the time she looked up, her hands were shaking so bad she had to set the phone down. "Is this real?" she whispered. I just nodded, didn't trust myself to speak. She sat back, blinked hard, pulled her engagement ring off and set it neatly on the table between us. "Thank you," she said. And that was it. No drama, no screaming, just cold, heavy finality. Melanie walked out without her latte, her ring, or a second glance. Step 1, complete. Next was Uncle Marcus. That one needed to be handled carefully. Couldn't just shove screenshots in his face and expect him to believe me over Zach. Golden boy privilege is a hell of a drug. So I baited the hook. I called Marcus, played it cool, asked to meet for career advice. Said I was thinking about getting serious about moving up at the company. We met at the same golf club where Zach liked to post selfies. Marcus ordered 2 scotches. I nursed mine while he talked about leadership and ambition and all the things he thought Zach had, and I lacked. When he finally paused, I leaned in and said, real casual, "Hey, off the record, you ever worry about, appearance stuff? Nepotism? Favoritism?" Marcus bristled immediately. Defensive. Good. "Of course not," he barked. Right, I said. Just heard some stuff about the Northfield account. About who really closed it. I let it hang there. Heavy. Marcus's face went tight. I pulled up a few of the cleaner screenshots. Zach bragging to Nia about stealing credit from his junior team, about faking expense reports for client dinners that never happened. Again, nothing that would land him in jail, but enough. Enough to make Uncle Marcus wonder if promoting Zach might be a PR nightmare waiting to happen. Especially now that Melanie, future daughter-in-law, was suddenly missing in action. Seeds. Planted. Step 2, complete. Thursday night, Mom hosted family dinner like always. Said she wanted to lift my spirits after my breakup. Zach showed up late, dishevelled. The same cocky smile plastered on his face. But his eyes? Different. Jumpy. Darting around the room like he was waiting for someone to jump out with a subpoena. Throughout dinner, his phone kept buzzing. He kept silencing it, growing more and more twitchy. Mom noticed. Dad noticed. Hell, even Grandma, half blind and 85 years old, noticed. Nobody said anything, though, not until Zach excused himself and disappeared into the backyard to take a call. From the kitchen window, I watched him pacing like a caged animal, yelling into the phone, probably begging Melanie not to blow everything up. Spoiler alert, too late. When he came back inside, his face was pale. He sat through the rest of dinner picking at his food like a kid forced to eat vegetables. I played my part. Polite, smiling, helpful. Let him squirm. It was better than any punch I could have thrown. Friday morning, it really started. Missed calls, desperate texts. First from Zach, bro, WTF are you doing? Stop, please. Then from Nia, please, Liam, we need to talk. Then from Marcus, then from Melanie's mother, who somehow had gotten my number. By noon, Zach's promotion was under review. By evening, Melanie's Instagram was wiped clean of any trace of him. By midnight, Zach was blowing up my phone like it was his job. Begging, threatening, crying. I didn't answer. Just saved the voicemails. For the scrapbook. By Saturday morning, I wasn't even checking the notifications anymore. Phone buzzing every 5 minutes. Zach, Nia. A few unknown numbers I guessed were Uncle Marcus, or maybe Melanie's family. I let them all pile up like junk mail. I wasn't interested in talking. The damage was already done. And I wasn't sorry. That afternoon, I met Melanie one last time. She'd asked for it, said she had something to give me. We met at a diner on the edge of town. The kind with cracked vinyl booths and a waitress who calls everyone honourable. Melanie looked different, sharper, stronger. She slid a small black box across the table without a word. Inside was the silver watch I had gifted Zach for his 30th birthday, back when I still thought blood meant loyalty. Found it when I was clearing out his stuff, Melanie said, voice dry. Figured it should go to someone who actually has character. I almost laughed at that. Instead, I just nodded and tucked the box into my jacket. We sat there for a while, talking like two people who had survived the same house fire. No romantic tension, no messy emotions, just a strange kind of understanding. As I stood to leave, she said, "You didn't just save me from marrying the wrong man. You saved me from becoming someone I would have hated." I didn't have words for that, just a small, tired smile. Meanwhile, Zach's world kept shrinking. Uncle Marcus launched a formal review of all Zach's accounts at the company. Not because he suddenly cared about right and wrong, but because the board did. And Marcus cared about money more than family. The promotion? Gone. His spot at the company? Wobbly. His engagement? Torched. Family dinners? Suddenly very awkward. The golden child's shine wore off fast when the cracks showed. By the next week, Zach was crashing on some random buddy's couch. Melanie had changed the locks and handed his stuff back in garbage bags. I heard about it through my mum, who cried telling me, not for me, of course, for him. Funny how that works. As for Nia, she spiraled hard. Heather, Nia's old roommate, messaged me, asking if I wanted to pick up the rest of my stuff. We met at a park bench, and she handed me a sad little box, my hoodie, a couple books, a random coffee mug I used to leave by the sink. "You know she really loved you, right?" Heather said awkwardly, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. I just stared at her, didn't say what I was thinking. Loved me so much she laughed while throwing my life into trash bags. Loved me enough to scheme behind my back with my own cousin. Instead, I asked, "Would you forgive that?" Heather didn't answer. Didn't need to. Before she left, she asked if I wanted to grab dinner sometime. "Just friends," she said quickly. I told her maybe. I wasn't ready, not for friends, not for anything. I needed to remember who I was without being someone else's backup plan. My parents tried to stay neutral. Mum kept inviting both Zach and me to family dinners, acting like everything was fine if she put enough mashed potatoes on the table. Dad was quieter about it. I think he saw the full picture but didn't know how to deal. The big shift came the night I dropped off a manila folder at their house. Inside were copies of everything: texts, emails, screenshots, proof. I didn't stay to explain, just left it on the kitchen table and walked out. 2 days later, Dad handed me an envelope with enough cash to furnish my new place. "You deserved better," he said, looking about 100 years old. "You always did. We just didn't see it. I didn't cry. I didn't even smile. Just nodded. Sometimes forgiveness isn't loud. Sometimes it's just moving forward without dragging all the broken pieces with you." Nia's final text came about a week after that. One long, desperate paragraph: "I'm so sorry. I didn't know it was like that. Zach lied to me, manipulated me. I never meant to hurt you like this. I miss you. Please, Liam, please talk to me." I read it twice and felt nothing. No anger, no longing. Just a clean, cold emptiness. The kind that feels like freedom. I blocked her number without replying. Didn't even hesitate. The last time I saw Zach was about 2 months later, totally by accident. I was grabbing groceries after work, in sweats, looking like hell but not caring, and I spotted him down the frozen aisle. He looked older, deflated, like someone had let all the air out of him. He saw me too, paused. For half a second I thought he might come over, might try to make some kind of apology, might try to claw back the brotherhood he burned to ashes. Instead, he turned around and walked away. Didn't even grab the frozen peas he was reaching for. I just kept walking. Didn't feel a damn thing. Now I've got a 1-bedroom place downtown. Walls are thin, plumbing's garbage, and the neighbours blast 90s grunge at all hours. But it's mine. Every crappy faucet and squeaky floorboard, mine. No Zach, no Nia, no carefully curated fake life where I had to shrink to fit someone else's version of me. Just peace. Real, boring, beautiful peace. Sometimes late at night, when I'm half asleep on my hand-me-down couch, I wonder how it all unravelled so fast. How people who swore they loved you could turn so easy. How betrayal doesn't always come with knives and shouting matches. Sometimes it's just 1,000 little cracks you don't notice until everything breaks. But mostly, I don't think about them anymore. Mostly, I think about tomorrow. And how lucky I am to finally build a life that doesn't need anyone's permission to exist. The best revenge was never ruining them. It was remembering I didn't need them to be whole.